Zoom. Ellis Cinema back, another dish. How we doing out there? Good, great, grand, and wonderful. As you see on your screen, the Paper Tigers. Boy, I've been waiting quite a while to talk about this one. The Paper Tigers is about three estranged friends who get word that their old kung fu master has died under mysterious circumstances. Now middle-aged and out of shape, they must revisit the martial arts world that they left long ago to avenge their master's death. So as most of the audience knows, I can't stand doing this show. I can't unless I have someone that I can bring on that's of note and a film that's interesting enough to talk about. And boy, this is one of my favorite films of the year. And I know that audience members listening to this, that's not a phrase that I throw around. I don't know. I think we live in a time where hyperbole and absolute, I don't say it very often. And watching this film, I finally getting to watch this film, even though my name was pasted across the top of it. That was kind of annoying, but it is what it is. I was happy to see it before it dropped. And just so you know, guests, before I bring you on, I couldn't tolerate my name being up at the top. So I just went ahead and rented it because I was just like, this is taking me out of the film. I just can't do this here. So, like I said, embodying everything that I want when doing these shows, which is a phenomenal piece, and two guests that were kind enough to come on and join the Ellis Cinema podcast for the first time, director Bao Tran and producer Al'n Duong. Gentlemen, Ellis Cinema podcast, first time. How we doing today, gentlemen?
What up? Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Sean.
So I'm not kidding. One of my favorite films of the year, gentlemen. It is everything that I want. It's got the action. It's got the heart. It's a pacing. I think it's one of the more well-written films I've seen of the year. So before we get into the Paper Tigers and before I gush, because I'll wait until I chuck you guys the peace sign before I get all gushy, because I don't like doing it in front of guests. It makes me uncomfortable. But you can go back and listen to my kind words afterwards. So before we get into the Paper Tigers, gentlemen, where did your love of film come from? Like, I know we all have that story where we went into the theater one day and there was Batman on the screen and just decided, you know what? I'm going to make film for a living. So, Bao, I'll start with you, director of the Paper Tigers. Where did this love from film stem from?
Yeah, I grew up in a bicultural household as a Vietnamese American, and I grew up watching a lot of Asian films as in addition to kind of the Hollywood movies that you would see in the theaters. So I grew up watching and really appreciating Bruce Lee as a hero, but it wasn't until I saw Jackie Chan and just really seeing just the musicality and the rhythm and the kind of the texture you could just feel to his action scenes, that I just wanted to figure out how to do it, and just how to basically tear apart what a movie is, and tinker and figure out how the gears worked, and figure out filmmaking. So Jackie Chan really set me on the way as far as wanting to make films, and obviously he said he's been inspired by Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire and Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. So that kind of led me down the whole rabbit hole, just really appreciating silent movies, musicals, and then movies as a whole, or in international cinema and all those things. So that just kind of really put me on the way of just of kind of appreciating and wanting to make films as a life.
That's awesome. Not a lot of people know the whole Charlie Chaplin thing. I mean, when you watch Jackie's films, it is so prevalent throughout almost every single one of his films, just, and I love a lot of stories about Jackie Chan, whether it be watching America's Funniest Home Videos and grabbing ideas that he could use as bits throughout other films. But I mean, between the Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, whom I started out with slapstick comedy myself. Most kids were growing up watching, Transformers. Not that I didn't watch that, but I always had Abbott and Costello and Laurel and Hardy on, which is weird because that seems like, maybe if I was born in the 50s, that would seem something that I would grow up with. But when you watch those things and then you watch Jackie Chan, you're just like, he is implementing all the very same things. And mind you, they're all working as well. It's not necessarily a foregone conclusion that, oh, I'm gonna pretend like I'm Charlie Chaplin and it's gonna work. That's not necessarily the truth. So what about you, Mr. Duong? What about you?
Yeah, no, I grew up, pretty similarly to Bao, being a Vietnamese American, growing up with, your Bruce Lee's and your Jackie Chan movies as usual. But like, I think what really inspired me to, get into filmmaking more was probably like Tim Burton, being, kind of a visual storyteller, and also Spielberg. Like I mean, Jaws is just, one of those movies that I can always go back to and just kind of dissect, how do you tell that story from A to Z, and just, the character development, and the fact that, the idea of being fearful of an object or this animal that you never see essentially until the very end. And that right there in itself is amazing, filmmaking. And so, I always kind of carry those types of things of, being there's a lot of things that you can do in simple ways in filmmaking that have huge impact. Just like how he treated Jaws, the shark. So I always love kind of that simplicity of filmmaking, and so yeah, those are pretty much my inspirations.
Now I'm just thinking about it. You implemented a little Jaws action into the Paper Tigers because we kind of see the villain, a little bit, and then more and more as the film goes on. But there's very much like you said, a Jaws reveal towards the end. I mean, I don't even think he really says much until the latter half of the film, which is awesome because it keeps him mysterious. And another thing, too, you mentioned Jaws. I don't know if you did that because I brought it up before we rolled mics, but
You
either way,
planted it.
yeah, either way, I want to talk about the on-screen chemistry. Just as good as Jaws. Well, I shouldn't say that because I'll get a lot of hate in my DM. So I'll just say on par with the on-screen between the Paper Tigers themselves. The on-screen chemistry is great. They all work well off of each other. So, I mean, this from top to bottom, this movie is everything that I wanted to be. And I've heard rumblings for a year or so until, we finally were able to drop it here now. Isn't it stream? It's streaming everywhere now, I believe. You can get the physical copy from Wellgo on June 22nd. But so to that point, the Paper Tigers kind of walk me through the genesis, gentlemen. How did this all come about, and the execution? And did you guys know who you wanted to have in it from the start? Because I tell you what, Elaine Uwe knocked it out of the park. Ron Yuen knocked it out of the park. Even the hateable what was it, Carter, the hateable Matthew Page was hilarious in that way where you're like, oh, like if you can take a step back and not be an audience member for a second, you can just be like, from an acting standpoint, he's nailing it because he's achieving all the things that you want in that character, where you just, whether him, quoting Chinese scripture and you're just like, oh, what are you doing, man? Stop it. Like, especially when he's like us Chinese say, and I'm just like, Jesus, oh, I can't with guy. And just perfect comedic timing with him. So anyway, back to the genesis of the Paper Tigers. Where did it all begin?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a huge compliment. We take it to even be mentioned in the same breath as Jaws. Maybe it's because you planted it and then we planted it. So really, we're just in the same conversation because it was meant to be.
So we are
But
Jaws.
yeah, exactly. But there's a lot of great moments in Jaws that is kind of an action film, but there's these great kind of dramatic moments. I think I even used this in a pitch once when we were trying to pitch this film. Like, there's that scene with Brody and his kid, just kind of like sitting at the dinner table, and his kid's kind of mimicking him, and it doesn't really, you could say it doesn't really do anything to kind of push the plot forward or anything, but it really establishes kind of their relationship, and even just without saying anything, it kind of gives you the vibe of what that means to be for father and son in this household. And so that's the kind of the vibe that we want to give off, and maybe that's the kind of chemistry that hopefully comes across, is that there's all these characters that are have very rich histories with each other, and very much conflict and complex histories with each other. With, like, the bullied person now becomes the bully, and everything kind of flip flops in all its own way. And so you kind of watch the sparks fly kind of naturally, and you kind of want to see what the characters react to now these new life situations. So yeah, that's the kind of the whole vibe that we wanted to go with the movie, and then just kind of like reflect upon what it might look like for ourselves. What it would look like for us to have to fight a challenge match. So it was, in a lot of ways, it was kind of a hypothetical question to ourselves who had done martial arts and wanted to like uh you know uh move on, or maybe fell out of love from our initial love and kind of gone to other things, but we still owe a lot to our martial arts upbringing, still owe a lot to our martial arts teachers, and what do we owe, and whether we think that's worth passing on or not. So that's the whole kind of theme and the breadth of kind of figuring out what the story and kind of the themes that we wanted to work with and kind of tell with the story for sure. So that's the movie, but then I guess the making of, I'll let Alan kind of give this the 411 on that, because that's a whole nother movie in itself, just trying to get this movie made, because it's like that was the heartfelt intentions of that we just wanted to tell a movie that was like this, with fart jokes, and that's all we want to do. But then it became a whole, a lot more hard and challenging than we ever imagined it to be, and that's what got us to where we are today.
Oh, come on. I got, after seeing the challenger, like, I just knew like this dude is going to be something special. Like, I mean, and that's just a short film. And just for you guys information, this is not, just so we're clear, I'm not knocking short films, but I am definitely such a more long form storytelling than, like, I can't get into Twitch and I don't go down YouTube loops. It's just not, and again, it's not, it's cool that we have that medium. Whereas, when we were growing up, like, you were in Hollywood or you were in New York and it's kind of bust. And now you have all these avenues. So I definitely praise it from that. But I also think when you're watching these small clips, be it whatever they be, over and over and over, I think it kind of devalues the visuals after a while, because, whether you're being on your phone, Instagram, Twitter, so on and so forth, it it's constant, whatever. But I sit down and I watch the Challenger, and this was a long time ago at this point, and I'm just like, I don't know who these guys are, but if they don't start making films ASAP, I'm a terrible fan. I want you guys to do this until you're in wheelchairs. Like, I'm one of these people that's just like,
Yeah,
you just
he's
have
gonna
to
be
keep
standing over our grave. He's like, when's the next movie?
No, I am one of
Always
those guys.
lying down.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
70. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You fix it in post. That's what you can do.
I love it.
There you go.
Wait, so you
Anyway.
saw the short Challenger years ago? Is that
No,
right?
this is, I think, a couple months ago.
Okay, yeah.
When I was, so something you guys should know about me. I don't watch trailers ever. I don't read into things. Like, I'm so bad, and this is true. Anyone that's seen a movie with me, if I'm sitting in a theater and a preview for a movie that I know I'm going to see, it's got Tom Hardy in it, whatever, I get up and I walk the fuck out the theater, because I don't need to see any of, like, I'm going to see the movie. You don't need to, and my mind starts to, work overtime. I'm like, oh, well, I saw that piece in the trailer. I wonder if that's going to motivate. I can't do it. So anyway, in preparation for this, I thought, well, what harm would it do to watch The Challenger? And boy, just I as soon as it rolled, I was just like, well, the Paper Tiger is going to be sick. I know it. It's going to be sick. So I'm sorry, Alan, your Genesis project coming to you.
No, I mean, like Bao mentioned, I mean, this became like a lot harder than we thought, just to get this off the ground. I mean, like, Bao wrote the story 10 years ago. And then I hopped on. This is going to be my 8th year on this movie alone, and literally we were just trying to pitch the script, to studios and everything, and like, I mean, like what you said, you saw something in the Challenger, but a lot of the other studios out there, they just saw it as, well, this is your first feature film. What are you going to do, right? And then on top of that, there was a lot of pushback on, the our leading cast being all people of color, right? Because, like, there wasn't, any data out there that said that people of color made, profitable movies. And so, which is true during that time, because we were pitching before Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians, stuff like that, before, representation was trendy, and so, we kept getting this pushback, and we actually got, multi-million-dollar, offers just to swap Danny, the lead character, into a Caucasian character. And, you know, obviously if you know the story, you know, now it's just like that would not work, you know, like that's just not the story that we wanted to tell. And ironically enough, you know, after making it, you know, Carter ends up being one of the, you know, the most memorable characters in the movie, right? And so it just, for us, it was just about telling the story that we, you know, that Bao wrote, and that, you know, that made us laugh, you know, like Bao mentioned, you know, we are literally an American kung fu movie with fart jokes, and that's just who we are. That's just like the type of humor that we have. And we knew that there's an audience out there, and, you know, we took it to Kickstarter. We raised over $124,000, and then we, you know, got, you know, private investment, and that ultimately gave us the keys to, you know, like be the power behind the camera and cast whoever we wanted. And you know, to kind of speak to, you know, what you were saying about chemistry on set, was that, you know, that's not something that you know, like I've been a part of a lot of film sets, and chemistry is just something really hard. You know, it has to come naturally. It just happens to be that we casted three guys that end up loving each other. You know, like they became the Tigers on set, and that kind of set the tone for, you know, everyone. You know, like I've worked with Bao since, you know, 2006, 2007, and same as Ken, and you know, and we all came from working on Bao's short film Bookie, and that core group of producers and, you know, action designer, like we just had that chemistry. And to have kind of our counterparts in the cast to have a similar chemistry as well, I mean, that was just the recipe for success right there. And that's something, you know, I feel really fortunate about, that, you know, we were able to have that chemistry.
So two things, just kind of what you were saying. So one, I had actually edited a joke out, but you brought up, you brought up kind of having an all colored cast. One of the jokes that I took out, just because I said the paper, hey, I'm going to let it ride. Just chill.
Do it. Just do it.
Chill. Okay. So the paper tigers is my Minari. And I took it out because Minari is Korean and paper tigers is more Chinese. But when you bring that up, like it bug, I think, because when you watch as many films as I'm sure we all do, like it still doesn't compute for me that Black Panther is just now kind of becoming big. It doesn't compute to me that a movie like this has a tough time. And that's, you can call it white privilege or whatever, but I'm just sitting there going, no, wait a minute. The Idris Elba could play Abe Lincoln. If the story's good and the acting's good, I don't care. I'm here to be entertained, whatever the case may be. So I'm, you know, that really just, I don't think we're going to see it as often anymore, but like, I feel like we may have missed out on so many good films because of just this nonsense. That's just, you know, I don't want to get political at all, but I did want to say that joke because I mean, so Minari's nominated for Best Picture, and don't get me wrong, Minari's fine. Nomadland's fine. Judas and the Black Messiah was really great. This has everything that I think makes an Academy Award winning film. You have I mean, the cast is great from top. Even the punks are great. In fact, to some extent, I like Brian Lee kind of blew my mind in a way where I was just like, who the hell is this dude? And funny, and boy, does he move really well. Well, they all do. Everybody in this film, whether it's the younger cast in your in the home videos, which I thought was a great way to kind of propel the story. We get to make up for a lot of time in that home video. It doesn't seem, I mean, as far as the beats go, it works perfectly. And we explain a lot. In what, 3 minutes, and now it's present day. And I'm just going, okay, this movie is going to be really good. And I kept on waiting for like a weak point in the film, and I can't find one, gentlemen. I've watched it now 3 times, and I was going to actually ask you, you know, was there some tough moments on the film? Was there a tough scene that just took, because I'm sure financing was a headache to put together. I tell everybody, just getting a movie made is a miracle, whether it's the cast or you got the camera equipment, that's a miracle. But financing always seems to be the number one in terms of getting the film made. So if we were taking you got the financing now. In terms of putting the film together, what were some of the, trials in putting the film together now that you had the money?
I mean, I'll speak on my behalf real quick, but like I think it's sort of related to budget, but it's more of time. I think we spent so much time trying to fundraise that Bao didn't have that time to really focus on okay, once we have the green light, what do we do? Like how do we prepare and stuff like that. So pre-production was shortened. So like to cast, have the actors train up for this, because like Matt Page, his background is in I think I forgot which type of karate, but he has a different style. It's more of a harder style, whereas on this one, being Sifu Carter, he has to have kind of that fluid kung fu type of movement. So he had to learn kung fu in like about a couple weeks, and really. And that's kind of hats off to our action team, Ken Kitagawa as the action designer, Sam Loke, and Kerry Wong, who are no strangers to Hollywood, who they've designed stuff for like The Mandalorian, Batman versus Superman, all this stuff, like really big movies. And so for them to bring their expertise, like they were able to train up all of these actors within like a short span of time. So I mean, the hats off to them. And then of course Bao, like he needed time with these actors to really build these characters. And so Bao can talk about that.
Yeah, I definitely agreed. I mean, there's a time. It's funny, you spent so much time, 8 odd years, thinking about it, dreaming about it, but it's not really down to brass tacks just yet. So you can kind of think in broad strokes. It's gonna be genius. It's gonna be great. Like you have those type of creative juices, but like once you actually go, it's like, well, what location? What size? How many extras? How many? Like it's really down to the specifics all of a sudden. And that time was very shortened for us. So it's very strange to kind of like kick into high gear and it's just go, go, go. And then now you're wishing for all the time in the world to kind of make it happen. But you make do. And then thankfully, because we had a team that we had worked together before and we have a shorthand and we were able to kind of like minimize a lot of those things. But it's still really tough. It's still very ambitious. It's one thing, I think, when we say, this movie's going to cost this much and then you kind of deliver. But it's another thing to say like, well, we want to get this much value, but you only have, this much money. And so then you're kind of like punched in the face by reality and figuring out like what exactly are the things you're willing to give away. What are the things that you're willing to compromise on it? Because, this whole stereotype of this uncompromising director, and it's like, that's not reality at all. Like you have to learn to figure out where to bend and where to actually stand firm and stuff like that. And that's what makes the movie. Because if you're too firm, you're too stiff and you break. And that's not how not how success is built on. You have to be able to kind of weave through all those challenges. So time is like definitely the hardest thing that we're fighting. We always want more time. Even just not just me, the DP wants more time, the production designer wants more time. We all want more time. But now you have to kind of deal with the reality of like, well, here's the window. What are you going to do about it? And then that I think is the other kind of notch of creativity, not just kind of like blue skying, what this thing could be, but actually like, what are we going to do with the situation and the circumstances that we're going to give with? That's creativity as well.
You mentioned your DP. That was Sean Mayor. Is that right?
Yeah.
Holy shit. No, I mean, top to bottom. I think that people have to understand, especially because, like I mentioned, a lot of aspiring young filmmakers listen to the show, or at least they say they do. I don't know. I don't check. I do the show and I get in, get off, get out. That's how I roll. So, people need to understand it's hard to successfully shoot an action film like properly, to do it from a technical aspect and to do it well. It is so much harder, I think, and I could be, 100% wrong, than filming two talking heads on a couch, there a breakup's happening or whatever. I think, especially nowadays where everything is so fast and you as a DP, like you kind of have to work with that whole ideology. Whereas I think, film, for at least, like, if we're talking from Academy sense, it almost felt like the longer we let a scene sit so that you can kind of take in the environment and everything like that, that's kind of became, and now I would argue we care more about aesthetic than we do storyline, which I think was just why this movie resonated with me, because it's both. Like there's not one time where I don't know, I'm picking things out going, I wouldn't have used that lens, or I wouldn't have used that shot there. And I just thought Sean knocked it out of the park. And I wanted to say, just so we have it on record, the entire sound department, which can also break an action film for me, huge. Like if I don't off the top of my head, because I don't script anything, I don't edit anything. What you guys hear is what you're gonna get. Just how fluid the fight sequences with the camera work and the sound. If it doesn't sound like it's and you guys do, not only that, you guys kind of centralize it when you're listening for the power shot. Like I thought that was great, because you kind of see like the sound that I'm talking about, where it's like, okay, it doesn't sound devastating, but then when you hear Ken hitting the bag, you're like, oh, okay. And that's a tribute to the sound department, which again, another layer of this film that I'm just like, there's no weak spots. I'm going to say that over and over again. There's no weak spots. Like I hope you guys will come back on again so that we can kind of really dig into the technical aspect of it. And I know, guys, audience members, I hate doing spoilers. I like to let the film come out, let it sit, resonate with people, and then we go back and we hit it again. That's just kind of how I roll. Bao, I have a selfish question for you, because when I was doing research for this, I saw something that said Big Trouble in Little China. What part did you, what contribute?
All of it. I ghost directed that. John Carpenter didn't do anything on that movie, and I had to go in and save that movie. I did it as a favor to the studio, because I have a great relationship, and I make millions of dollars just script doctoring and script directing, direct doctoring. These movies. It's great. I think you might be referring to an old, probably one of our original crowdfunding and fundraising videos. We just kind of made a fun video about that, and I think we're trying to come up with a way, how do we manufacture credits so that people think we're actually somebody versus nobodies. But it's a running joke that I think people I have a resemblance with Dennis Dunn from Big Trouble in Little China.
Because you guys show that clip. You're like, Big Trouble in Little China, and then here comes Dennis Dunn, and I'm like, no, it isn't. That's not. And then I'm sitting there trying to figure out. So I'm going through the movie, because Big Trouble is one of my.
We made you doubt yourself. See, you're in that rabbit hole. We put you in that spot. We're like,
well, Big Trouble
is wrong.
One of my favorites of all time. In fact, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, but if I can.
All right. Hey.
There it is.
Yeah, I see it.
There. And it's got the vinyl. It's got the vinyl.
Dope.
Oh, wow.
But one of my favorites of all time, and I'm like, he's not dead.
I was also in Infernal Affairs. Did you not see that? I was also opposite Tony Leung as the triad implanted into the police officers, detectives. So
no, you weren't.
I think I won a. No, I wasn't. Oh, okay.
No, you were not. I'm sitting there going, I don't even remember, because I have.
Well, you know what? I identify as the actor that was in Infernal Affairs. Okay, so that was me.
Okay, fair enough. No argument.
That's right.
Infernal Affairs was great, and Big Trouble's an all-timer for me. In fact, this is true. This is true. I like the first Infernal Affairs more than I do The Departed, and
sure, for sure.
But most people are just like, what? What's? At least you got to understand. I'm in this hillbilly. I'm in the hillbilly part of the world. They're like, The Departed's not an original. No, it's not. It even says that in the stinking credits. What's wrong with you? Gentlemen, I don't want to run long. I hope that you guys will come back on, but I have another selfish question for you. what's next? Because I told you I'll be standing over your grave wondering when you're making another film.
Dig them up.
That's
Dig them
right.
up. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Do we have anything next? I was going through, I never do this, but sometimes when I'm preparing for a show, I will read comment threads, and I think I saw something today like when's Paper Tigers 2 coming, and I kind of went, really? Is this happening? Does the broken back get fixed, and we're gonna see Ken back beating ass? I would love that. Anyway, what's next for you gentlemen?
We've been so, I mean, that's a question, and it's super flattering to hear. I think it sounds like it's great that people want to be part of this world and want to know more about these characters. So that's a positive sign of feedback there. We've been so like heads down, or basically wheels up, just traveling with this movie and just promoting the release, and just trying to meet as many folks as we can at these theater screenings all across the country, ever since May 7th. And then continue into the summer, we're going to be having a pretty big road tour, just trying to meet with as many people as we can. So it's just been this marketing roadshow, Barnum and Bailey type of thing that we're trying to, get this out there. So that's been, basically the bulk of our time. We do have some other projects. It just does take time to kind of sit down, cone of silence, and really just kind of really work. I'm not a big multitasker, so I do need kind of that space to just kind of like, once everything is once the baby's off walking, it's in Blu-ray, and people are be able to watch it. Like you're saying, it's in the world, and now people can kind of talk about it, and we don't necessarily have to talk about it as much. That would be a great place to be. So if the movie can be successful, then that's also a great place to be, because then you have a little bit more leverage and not have to spend another 10 years to make the next movie. So that's we're hoping for a lot of things to happen for this film, that we can continue on and be able to make the next one.
Yeah, it was certainly a 10-year pregnancy, and the birth was very difficult. And then there's Bao just smoking a cigar, and no,
glad
yeah,
handing everybody. Yeah, hey guys,
hey, we did it.
So
we
easy,
did it.
so easy. We did it.
No, I mean, like, just like Bao said, we haven't had the time to sit down, and it's sort of the COVID effect, because we didn't have a festival experience, because our whole festival run circuit was virtual. So we never got to travel, see other people. And like, we saw our movie in the theater for the first time, like, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so that was sort of like a religious experience for us, because, we make movies for an audience, and to finally hear an audience react to the movie was super special. And so we're kind of like soaking it in. This is sort of our victory lap now, of traveling around the country and just really talking about this journey, but also just really just sharing the movie, and seeing how people enjoy it, stuff like that. So it's but once things calm down, then it'll be a different story, and then you won't hear from us, hopefully. It won't take, like Matt said, it won't take 10 years.
It's kind of weird that you guys mentioned the festival. So I'm low key being bullied into doing my own festival right now, just because Toledo, which is where I'm at, Toledo, Ohio, doesn't have much of a film scene to speak of. And I have thought of 2 movies to start this with, and this is one of them. And we can talk off air, social media, whatever, about possibly doing that, or maybe even a Q&A afterwards, which I think would be really good, because I want you guys to know that people will go to a theater and see this and will appreciate it. And 2, you guys deserve it. I mean, I think COVID shut down so many things for pictures like these that, like, it bums me out, because unless, like, you're getting Netflix publicity or something like that, I think it's very easy to overlook. And kind of go back to what I said in the beginning of the show, there's just so much stuff that it's getting to the point now where it's like, I just turn people down when it comes to recommendations anymore. They're like, I'm just stop right there. I have 100 things that I want to watch for myself, and that doesn't count the 50 things that I'm obligated to watch, be it for Wellgo or Arrow or whoever. So yeah, we should talk about that, because I would love to get the name up on the marquee and share the experience with everyone, because I told you guys I was going to do this off air, but you guys have been great. So I'm just going to do it to your face, so that I'm genuine. I think you guys made a wonderful film. I really do. I think it's well written. I think it's well acted. I think it's well produced. I think it's well directed, be it Bao or Ken. Sadly, we couldn't have on here, but top to bottom. And I think the big thing that resonates with me, besides the fact that I remember when I used to be able to move pretty well and now I can't move, besides some of the surface level stuff, I think you made a transcendent film in that kung fu doesn't know, or I'm sorry, gun fu does not know age, race, gender. I think this is something that I could show my 11-year-old sister, and I think she would be like, "Hey, wait a minute, that's really good." And I don't think it's very easy to do a film like that. So, gentlemen, I really hope that this is the start of something big for you guys. And I think if people have half a brain, it will be, because this is elite filmmaking, it's elite storytelling, and if you wanted to take that out of the mix, it's a goddamn good action flick where it's not just random action sequence that don't propel to the next scene. And I think far too often we trade explosions for story, and we didn't do that here. I thought every single fight sequence in this is all motivated from a previous scene, and I think you guys made something special, and I really hope that you guys will come on again.
Thank you. That's great words. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Gentlemen, I am out of here. I hope to talk to you soon. I may reach out on so I don't touch most of my social medias, but if I do reach out, it'll be on Instagram. So look for that. I would love to have you back on again for a longer chat and more of, like I said, let it resonate with the people first, and then we will really get into the nitty gritty. All right, gentlemen.
Absolutely. Sounds good, man.
Bao Tran, Al'n Duong, getting them out of here. I tell you what.